All right, it is 7:30, so we will get started. And welcome to my first Maker Caddy make along. And the first time I'm doing an instructional thing through YouTube. So I'm a little excited, and bear with us. We're using one camera as we do this, so it will shift views every once in a while. But basically, I'm going to introduce what we're doing, and then the camera's going to turn and focus on the sewing machine. First of all, like, the area that I'm working is compact because of the camera and the way it needs to be positioned. So I'm going to do like my measuring and my cutting sort of in front of the machine or on the throat of my sewing machine. If you've got more space and you can spread out, feel free to spread out. You should always spread out and take up as much space as you need when you're sewing. So feel free to spread out. I'm going to be going slowly and step by step. And if you need me to slow down even more, just put it in the chat. See, my husband will read it for me. And that said, if you have any questions or if anything is not clear, put it in the chat and we'll back up and then we'll move forward again. Okay? So let's get started, and we're going to look at the sewing machine right now. All right, so get it a little closer. There we go. All right. So first up, let's talk about the supplies that we should have. If you've got a pair of scissors and if you've got some snips, not absolutely necessary, but good to have. A seam ripper, just in case we make mistakes, but we shouldn't be making mistakes. We're going to go slowly. Clips or pins, you don't need that many, but a few are helpful. If you have a marking pen, and this can be a regular marker, it can be a pen, a pencil. I have a water-soluble marker, but everything we're marking is on the inside of the project, so it doesn't go through. So do not worry if all you've got is a Sharpie or some sort of marker in your house. That is fine. A ruler. I have a quilter's ruler here. You can use a straight edge. You can use a measuring tape. Anything is fine. And then if you do have your caddy kit, it has the two straps, your lining, and then your quilt piece. So if you're using your own materials, remember it's 15 inches across and 18 inches long. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to mark our quilt piece on the right side, and we're going to mark it into thirds. So because it's 15 inches across, that means we will mark at the 5-inch and at the 10-inch. And you can just take your pen and just put like a little mark there and then at 10. And you can do this on the other side as well. And again, you're doing this on the right side, but within the seam allowance. And the seam allowance is 1/4 inch. So go ahead and mark 5 and 10. Next up is we are going to attach our handles, and you can take your handles, make sure they're not twisted when you're pinning them or clipping them to the quilt piece. You want them to not be twisted, and then you can take the end of your handle and sort of put it so the mark is halfway. So the handle is about 1 inch, and just put that so 1/2 inch on either side of the mark. I actually have the handle go over the quilt by maybe 1/8 of an inch, and I do that for both sides, and I clip them into place. The next thing we're going to do is clip the canvas or your lining fabric to the same spot on the handles. So you basically have a little bit of a sandwich with your quilt right side up, your handle piece, and your lining. If you're using your own fabric, it would be right sides together. The canvas lining though there's no right side or wrong side, so you can just go with it that way. All right, so once you've got that pinned together or clipped together, we're gonna sew straight along that 15-inch length at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to move these out of the way. So I said a 1/4 inch seam allowance. A lot of times I just line my fabric up with the edge of the sewing machine foot. That on my machine is about a 1/4 inch. Even if it's not, as long as I'm consistent, it will turn out. So, and let's just give it a go. And you'll want to backstitch at the beginning and then again at the end of your 15 inches. So let's go ahead and sew that seam. When you get to the handle, you might have to take it a little slowly, or even, depending on your machine, you might want to use your hand wheel to go over, to help you go over if it's thick. Right, so there you have one seam. I know it's hard to see the white colored thread on the canvas, but that's what you got there, your one seam. And then we're going to do exactly the same for the other side. Pin the handles into place, making sure they're not twisted. And then clip the lining to the quilt again. And once that is all together, sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Is everybody at the same spot?
No response.
If they're sewing, they might have trouble typing. Yes, Lucy says, great. Thank you, Lucy. All right. All right. So once you've got your two short ends sewn, we are going to fold the piece so that the lining sides are together and the quilt sides are together. And you can see where they meet right there in the middle. What you want to do is turn one end of that seam allowance up and the other side down. And then if you peek in between, you can match that up really nicely and give that a clip. So on this section, what we're going to do at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're going to sew for about 3 inches. Then we're going to stop. We're going to leave about a 3-inch gap. And then we're going to pick our sewing up again right before the lining fabric changes to the quilt fabric. And then we're going to continue sewing all the way down. But to get a really nice finished piece where the quilt and the lining sort of intersect at that juncture, it's really great to fold your seam allowance 1/2 up and 1/2 down, and then match those two areas right in there. And you'll notice after we sew, you'll be able to see how beautifully those points meet up. All right, so go ahead with your marking pen and mark maybe 3 inches and give yourself like 3.5 to 4 inches on your canvas. All right. This, I really play it by eye. We leave this open, so when we're ready to turn the bag right side out, that's the area that we're going to do it. There, you can see the 2 markings. All right, and again, using that 1/4 inch seam allowance, we are going to sew to the first mark. And backstitch when you get to that. And don't worry if you overshoot it or undershoot it. It's really okay. And then skip ahead to the next mark. There we have one side sewn. We are going to do the same thing on this side, excuse me, but we do not need to leave a gap in the lining fabric. So this time we can sew all the way down the lining fabric, but still try to do that same bit where you've got half your seam allowance going up and half your seam allowance going down, because it just looks really great when you turn the bag the other way. Give that a clip. And again, at 1/4 inch. Like we're already halfway done. So, all right. Any questions so far? All right. The next part is where you might want to have a little extra room, because we are going to do some measuring. So basically, we're boxing the corners. So if your piece is like this with your canvas on top and the quilt down below, pull the sides of the canvas away from each other, and it creates like a triangle point. This is the side that actually has the gap, so you can finger press that seam allowance. So it's a little bit of an awkward motion, but you're basically pulling the sides from each other, and that creates a triangle. Now, what we want to do with our marking pen and our ruler is mark a line that's 5 inches across. And the center of that line should be at 2.5 inches, should match up with the seam. And that will tell you that it is a straight line. So you want to do that. Just like that. So you can see that. All right. So we are going to stick a pin in that so it just sort of stays stationary while we go to the other corner, and we do the same thing. Open up that seam. And again, we're measuring 5 inches, and the middle of that 5 inches should be, the 2.5 should line up with the center of that seam, and draw your line. Right? And then we're going to also do that for the quilt. So here's the long bit. There's, how it looks, and pull the 2 sides apart from each other, open up that seam, and then measure 5 inches. There's that. And then do the last corner. There's 5 inches. So what we're going to do next then is sew each of those corners along that line that we just drew. So I'm going to start with this one. And just make sure that the line is in the middle, like the needle is following the line that you just drew. And then hold the seam allowance with your fingers so it doesn't fold over. You'd like to have that nice and flat. So 1. Yep. So there, I sewed that first corner. There's the second corner. Oh, let's see, I purchased a quilt. Oh, that's such a good idea, Pam, a quilted pillow sham. Very nice. Once we get finished with this, you will see how simple they are to make, and you can really make them from just about anything, and they make great gifts. So, like, I've given them, I've put like books in them and given them to new parents with, a bunch of baby books in them, or you could, fill it up as an Easter basket at Easter time. It's a really easy, great little gift. So now I'm sewing the canvas. All right, so I've got my 4 corners sewn, the 2 canvas corners and the 2 quilt corners. So it looks sort of awkward like this. What we're going to do next is we're going to cut these corners off. We are going to cut them though with like a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So don't cut too closely to the line that you just sewed. So 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So what I also do at this point is when we turn the bag right side out, we do a row of top stitching around the perimeter, and the seam where the quilt and the lining meet tends to get bulky. So I tend to grade that just a little bit, and I cut it to like maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I'm very, very close to the stitch line, but it makes it so much easier when I'm sewing around to put that top stitching on. So you don't need to do the entire seam allowance, but just that area where the two meet. All right. All right. Now, this is the hardest part. We are going to turn the bag right side out. You're going to use that little hole that you created or that you left. If you need to make it a little bit wider, because I've certainly like sewn this too narrowly and been really aggressive about that. If you need to open it with a few more stitches, do not worry. Go ahead and do that because it's really simple to close it up afterwards. But basically, I tend to push the lining through first and then the quilt follows. There we go. It's right side out. Now I stick my hand in there and I push out the corners of both the lining and the quilt. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is close up that gap that we left. So you can fold your seam allowance in. It sort of just naturally folds in on itself, and we'll just pinch it closed and then come on over to the sewing machine. And this I am sewing closer to the edge. I'm not doing a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm doing like 1/8 of a 1/8 inch seam allowance. And I am back stitching at the front and the back. And this is where if you've got little snips, they come in handy to get those little threads taken care of. There. All right, so that's closed. And now you just tuck it inside of the bag. And what I do here is just with my fingers, roll the quilt and the lining sort of away from each other all the way around. So, and we are at the last step. The last step is to sew one row of top stitching all the way around. So when I do this, I actually, instead of sewing it with the quilt side up, I actually sew still with the quilt side down. My machine doesn't have a free arm, and this is just an easier way for me. Also, the quilt tends to shift a little bit as you're attaching it to the lining. And this, because of the feed dogs in the sewing machine, it just feeds more evenly this way, I've found. So, and I'm sewing at a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch. I'm using the inside toe of my presser foot as my guide all the way around. And I start a little bit before the side seam, just because that side seam is lumpy. And sometimes the machine needs to have a little bit of, I don't know, like a head start to get up and over that little bit of a bump. So if you're having trouble, tug from the back or use your hand wheel. When you get to the handle, make sure the handle is away from the bag, not into the bag. You do not want to stitch it. There we go. Just take it nice and easy all the way around. The hand wheel is your friend if it feels like it's having a hard time getting over those lumps and bumps. All right, and then when you're back at the beginning, just do a couple back stitches and trim any loose threads. There's a loose one over here. And there you have it. You've got your Maker Caddy. Really not nearly as tough as I'm sure you might have thought. Super easy project, as I've said. They make a great gift. I love these. I mean, they are so much fun to use for your knitting projects. They make a good gift. Like I've given them to my son so he can keep all of his game controllers and things like that in them. They're just super duper handy as a grab and go instead of a big tote bag. And I hope you've enjoyed making a Maker Caddy this time around. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Are you all finished? So beautiful. Thank you. Yay. If you do make some and you're on Instagram, feel free to post a picture and tag me at m.a.b.e.l Style, and I'll give you a shout out because I just think they're so much fun. So thank you so much for joining me. What are your favorite sources of quilts? So I get a lot of my quilts online. I look on both eBay and Etsy. The prices on Etsy are a little bit higher, but the photography's better though. So you sort of see better what you're getting. I also we have a bunch of vintage shops and secondhand stores in my neighborhood. So that's also a good place. It's every once in a while, there will be an estate sale and you can strike gold at an estate sale. Oh, you're welcome, Jojo. Thank you. You can also, there are like more modern quilts and you can definitely use a more modern quilt. I like using vintage quilts for the products that I sell, but I mean, there are so many beautiful modern quilts too. And Kanta quilts, those quilts from India, are also really, really attractive. And you can find those on like Facebook Marketplace and Etsy in particular. Oh, good. Lucy, I'm so glad you finished. Thank you. And this was so much fun. And I'll probably do some more tutorials like these going forward with some different product ideas. Hope you'll be able to join me then. Hit like and subscribe like you're always supposed to hit like and subscribe. Okay. Thank you very much.